Okay, before we dive in, I want to make something very clear. This discussion is not about shaming veterinarians. We have immense respect for veterinary professionals and the work that they do. Our goal today is to explore the many different approaches to pet wellness and highlight the various professionals who can play a vital role in your pet's health journey. This conversation is about empowering you as pet parent with the knowledge so you can make informed decisions and build the best support system for your pet, one that aligns with your values and meets your pet's unique needs.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Next Level Pet Parent podcast. If you're here, it means that you're a next level pet parent who wants to do the absolute best for their furry family. And today's episode is a big one because we're talking about something that I think a lot of pet parents don't realize. Your vet is very important, but they don't know everything about pet health. And that's okay. You wouldn't go to a general doctor for detailed nutritional counseling, right? So the same thing applies to our pets. To help us break this down, I've got an incredible guest for us today, which is Jessica Fisher. She's the founder of the Pet Parenting Reset podcast, a certified holistic pet health coach, and an expert in raw food nutrition. She's dedicated to helping pet parents make informed decisions when it comes to their pet's health, combining nutrition, training, and wellness strategies to optimize their well-being. Jessica, welcome to the show.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you both for having me on.
Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for talking about this really important topic. Because I think there's a big misconception actually where veterinarians are kind of thought to have to do everything. Like they're supposed to be the dentist, the skin dermatologist, they do surgeries, they do like everything. And sometimes we even ask them questions about emotional well-being, like there's also supposed to be our behaviorist, right? So
Yeah.
can we just talk a little bit about why do you believe that our veterinarians are thought to be this go-to expert for everything?
I think there's so many layers to this question, or the answer to this question. And of course, this is all my opinion. But having talked to so many veterinarians, especially holistic and integrative veterinarians, I was so fortunate to attend one of the AHVMA conferences a couple of years ago and make some friends there and just kind of be in the circle of, these people who have spent 4 and 5 decades practicing veterinary medicine and hear the conversations that they were having and the things that concern them and the things that they've seen in their lifetime of practice. And I think, one, we as a society, especially here in the US, we have been so conditioned to kind of give a lot of authority to various positions in our society. So, and I think this was very intentional, and I think it started in human healthcare or sick care, depending on how you want to term it. I think that's where it started. When we we've been conditioned to believe that there are certain people in authority positions, policemen, doctors, right? And so veterinarians just kind of naturally fall under that, where it's like we are supposed to trust them implicitly and kind of just do whatever they tell us to do. And it has unfortunately been really detrimental for both our health as humans and our pets' health because it's been kind of monopolized. If we look at, I hate to almost say it because I know there are people out there who are going to be like, oh, you're just a conspiracy theorist. But I think all of these things that we're going to talk about today are completely factual, that, the lobbyists in our government have just allowed so much to happen in our human healthcare system, and it just has trickled down into our veterinary healthcare system. And so add that into some of the other conversations that I've had the pleasure of having and being just a fly on the wall with some of these incredible holistic veterinarians, is veterinarians in general, when they go through veterinary school, they are taught to be uber competitive with one another.
Mm.
Like, one veterinarian will not almost ever even collaborate with another veterinarian. I don't know if anybody out there has experienced this. I know many people have experienced this, where they will talk to their veterinarian, and if they want to get another opinion, they're like, oh, well, then I'm not your vet anymore, right? Like, they are so uber competitive. And I think that is ultimately detrimental to their patients' health in the end. But that's how they're taught in vet school, is to be very competitive with one another, and it just kind of trickles down. And so we tie all of this together, and we're left with a society who reveres the profession, which, I mean, by the way, is an incredibly noble profession. I have absolutely nothing against even allopathic veterinarians. I very much appreciate their knowledge and what they're good for, which is often critical care, acute situations. They know the physiology of our dogs and
Mhm.
cats so much better than us who haven't been through veterinary school do. I very much appreciate that. I just think that as a society, we need to kind of unlearn the things that are detrimental for us and for our pets, and relearn how to use people appropriately for what they were actually trained to do. That was a long-winded answer.
Yeah, I just think it's so interesting that, vets are just supposed to be all these things all in one, whereas in the human world, we have specialists. You wouldn't go to your general doctor if you have, I don't know, like some type of skin problem, right? So, and then there's this gastrointestinal doctor in the human world. So, like, it's just so interesting that as pet parents, we all just have that one go-to person for anything that's wrong with our pet. So that's something that I think we're going to be challenging today, and also to like help pet parents understand there isn't just one person that can help your pet. Sometimes your pet might need several different people, and your vet isn't always the only person to go to. But something that you actually said was something very important as well, which is you're allowed to get second opinions. So I think that is a general misconception as well, or something that I know can be very hard when you're standing in a vet office to, say, okay, thank you so much for everything that you've done for me today. I think I want to get a second opinion just to be sure that this is the route that I want to go. You're absolutely allowed to do that, even if it's a little uncomfortable sometimes.
It is. And that actually recently happened to me. I took my dog to a new veterinarian. Didn't want to, but that's where we were. And I called the vet clinic. I called many vet clinics, and I thought, based on talking to the person that answered the phone, that while they didn't necessarily agree with how I am raising my pets, that they were going to at least be understanding that we were going to agree to disagree, and they were just going to do the blood work. That's all I wanted done. And I got there, and this veterinarian, who looked like she had been practicing for multiple decades, spent the whole time telling me how horrible raw food diets are, how she didn't believe in titer testing, how my dog needed to be on flea, tick, and heartworm prevention, and just on and on and on. And I was very calm and very nice. And I just said, I appreciate it. With everything she told me, I said, I very much appreciate your opinion. That's not how I'm going to, That's not what we're going to do. That's not how we're going to handle this today. And it got to the point where I said, look, if you don't want to see my dog, if you don't want to do the exam, that's fine. We will leave. And, she didn't know how to handle me.
Yeah.
And I wasn't being confrontational. I wasn't being rude. I wasn't crying and being emotional. I was just very calm, saying, thank you, no, thank you. If you're not comfortable with this, we can go. And I mean, she was frazzled, quite honestly. Like it seemed like chaos to her. And I'm like, calm down. Like I literally told her at one point, calm down. It's all okay. And my dog actually had high thyroid levels, which is fairly rare in a dog. Dogs tend to have low thyroid levels, and she was frantic. Like, I've never seen this in a dog. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And I'm like, it's okay. We've got time. And she's like, well, I need to research this and blah, blah, blah. And I said, that's fine. We have time. And I just she didn't know how to handle me, I felt like.
That's so interesting, like that experience that you have gone through.
And I think it's typical for a pet parent to get that response from a veterinarian, but I don't think the response I gave back to the veterinarian is typical. And so she just didn't know how to handle me, like it just seemed like chaos to her.
Yeah, it's so interesting because like also we've had an experience where we actually didn't agree with the veterinarian we were doing an ultrasound with Milka, and they needed to like kind of get her down and so they can shave her stomach, right? They wanted to do something to her stomach and she needed to be still for that. And she wasn't still. They wanted to give her a sedative. And we just asked, what is the name of the sedative so we can look it up? But she was just like not really having it.
Yeah.
He was quite rude to us, but we actually said, okay, you know what? Like, this isn't working right now. We're just going to leave and we'll maybe make another appointment, or we're just going to book with another vet that can actually do it with her being more calm. Today wasn't that day for her. Yeah. But I think it's really okay to, be respectful. First of all, you have to be respectful when you're talking to veterinarians, because I do think that's very important to be respectful to the people that are actually looking after your animals. But what would you say?
Yeah, but to express that whenever you don't feel comfortable and, to say that that's okay and you'll come back or you'll go somewhere else. Vets, like you said, they're trained to diagnose and treat diseases, but they're not always the specialists in things like nutrition or behavior science. So what have been some of your personal experiences raising your own pets? And can you just share some personal real life examples of situations where you have chosen to consult with a different type of pet wellness experts instead of a veterinarian?
There are so many, honestly. I always start, unless it's behavior. I think behavior, you do tend to go towards a trainer or a behaviorist. I think a lot of us kind of know that one, unless it gets bad. Like, I think anxiety is something that we still tend to go to our veterinarians for, especially if it has to do with like sounds or anything like that, thunderstorms, like the barometric pressure changes. Like, I don't think we understand that one as much, so we tend to go to our veterinarians for that. But so much I have gone to my veterinarian first, again, get diagnostics, because I want to actually know what I'm dealing with. But then there have been times, well, let me go back to kind of earlier in this progression that got me where I am today. I was feeding my pets kibble, all of them, my dogs and my cats. I was doing everything, literally everything my veterinarian told me to do. I was feeding, 4 different kinds of kibble because they all needed different kinds. I was giving them, dewormer every 3 months. I was giving them all of the vaccinations, the flea and tick. I was doing everything. And I I think I was just feeling motherly, maybe, and decided I wanted to cook some food for my pets, my dogs first. And then I was like, well, I'll give some to the cats too. But I was still giving it along with their kibble because I knew enough to know that I didn't know what the heck I was doing.
Yeah.
So on this path, I was just doing, like what a lot of people start off doing, chicken and rice and vegetables kind of thing. I went to my veterinarian at the time and I said, look, this is what I'm doing. I'm adding it into their kibble, but I would really like to cook for them, like completely cook for them and get rid of the kibble. And my veterinarian dead on looked at me and he said, I don't know, maybe add some tomatoes.
Tomatoes.
And I tell this story all the time because it's like, oh my goodness, like most people are just like, wow, that would blow your mind. And I went home that night, and I think that was the very first time where I was disillusioned by something my veterinarian had told me. I was the perfect patient for a veterinarian for many years. I had many animals, and this was, I think, the very first time that I came home and I was like, my veterinarian can't help me. And that was huge for me. Like it shook my world because I considered myself to be like, and everybody in my family and all of my friends, everybody I knew was like, you got an animal question, go ask Jessica. And in that moment, I was like, if my veterinarian doesn't know,
what else?
Then what else? Yes. What else do they not know? And fast forward a few months later, and I had a cat that was just could not get this ear infection to go away. And he gave me Revolution to put on him, even though my cats were strictly indoors, but I didn't, at the time I didn't know. And so Revolution, for anybody that doesn't know, is a topical flea and tick. It goes, like right in between the shoulder blades. And I put it on my cat and it gave him a chemical burn. And I called my vet and I was like, WTF? And he was like, well, he needs one more dose in a month. So blah. And I'm like, you are out of your ever-loving mind if you think that this medication that just gave my cat a chemical burn, that I'm going to put it on him again. So like at this point, I'm like, and I say this half jokingly because obviously veterinarians are incredibly well trained at what they do. But at that point, I was just like, what are these people even good for? Right? In this moment where your pet is physically harmed by something and your veterinarian is saying to do it again, I'm just like, what is happening? Like my whole world is crumbling. So to kind of, and I don't know if that answered your question. Maybe it half answered your question, but I think there are so many different things that we do need to look outside of our veterinarian for. So obviously there are specialists, right? If you have an animal that has some sort of disease, there are various specialists out there, whether that's for the eyes or anything else. Yeah, the heart. Any there are cancer specialists out there. Not very many, but there are. And there are, when we think of all of the things that our pets need to have done, groomers are part of that team. I have talked to, and in my podcast, I have actually learned a lot of this through my podcast because I have had some biases in my life. And I have been very honest with people when I bring them on. Kat Hinchin, I don't know if anybody is familiar with her, but she used to own Platinum Paws. Her husband is the very, very famous BC Hinchin. And now they have the Ninja Groomer. I had her on and I was just very honest with her. And I said, look, it took me a really long time to bring a groomer on this podcast because I have a bias. Like the only thing I knew about groomers and grooming were like the Petco grooming shops and all the horrors of dogs being left in dryers and dying and, things like that. And I'm like, So she educated me quite a bit on how for some dogs, the only time that they get checked for lumps and bumps and like growths and anything that's going on is when you take them to the groomer. So I actually now look at that as like an extension of a wellness routine for a pet. If you're not doing that at home, like for me at night, I get on the couch with my dog and I like, she doesn't know what I'm doing. She thinks she's just getting rubbed at night, right?
Yeah.
But I'm checking all over her body for lumps and bumps and is anything growing? Is anything weird going on, right? So there are groomers, there are your pet sitters, a hugely important part of your pet care team. And then we can get into other things, energy work. I think that's something really cool that a lot of people may not be aware of. I look at that as part of your pet care team. And then, yes, nutritionists are a very big part of that as well. And then holistic or just pet health coaches in general. I obviously prefer a more holistically inclined person, but pet health coaching is something that is relatively new, not like super, super new, but relatively new as far as like having certifications and designations and things like that. But it very much follows the same line as human health coaching, which has been around for a little while. And, you know, doctors, human medicine doctors, we know the pitfalls. They've got maybe 15 minutes with you. For women, especially, we're just kind of brushed off and like, oh, your symptoms are, we don't know anything about it. So you're fine, right? You're fine. Your labs are fine. So you're good. So, you know, health coaches are something that, again, newer to the animal world, to the pet world, but it's that same thing where we need somebody who, yes, is well trained, does know a lot, works alongside what your veterinarian is doing, is not a replacement, but can spend a whole heck of a lot more time and provide much more individualized recommendations for your pet. I'm just giving you guys such long-winded answers.
No, but that's a really great, especially like this, like having like a team of like health support.
Yeah.
So I really like the pet sitter, because I never, like, pet sitters are actually, they are quite important because they are the ones that are with your animal. They are, I mean, depending on the type of care they're giving to your animal, they might be doing that rub down and checking and seeing is anything different happening with your animal. The holistic pet health coaching, as you said, it's more new. There's more certifications coming around this. And it is really great because, just as you said, you have now, first of all, not everyone goes to the vet so often. And if you want something like a holistic or integrative vet, that can come at a pretty high price, honestly. So having like a holistic pet health coach or somebody that is holistically minded to help you navigate what is good for your pet and what is not good for your pet, and help you maybe even do research on certain topics such as flea and tick prevention.
Yeah, and then there are also herbalists as well.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the other really cool things about pet health coaches is that, very similarly to human health coaches, we all have things that we are, different modalities that we are really interested in, that we are really well versed in. Many of us have nutrition certifications as well. So, for me, nutrition is the very first thing we're going to talk about, hands down, period. And I think, I wish that were true for people, for human medicine as well. But like, that is just the very first thing we're going to talk about, because it is the foundation of health. It's what you put into your body is what builds the cells of your body. And so we all have different modalities that we are interested in. And with a more holistic approach, we do get to look into things like herbalism, homeopathy, ozone therapy. Even if it's not something that we can give to a pet, like ozone therapy, we can provide recommendations and resources. Some of what we do is just to say, you know what, your veterinarian didn't run these labs, and based on what I'm seeing, we really need these labs run. Please go back to your veterinarian and get this done, or talk to your veterinarian about something like ozone therapy or mistletoe therapy, or various things depending on what's going on for the dog or the cat. And it is just such a cool and interesting thing. And I have even seen veterinarians become more interested in modalities because their pet parent has come to them saying, I'm learning about XYZ. I really think it could be beneficial for my dog. And then they start looking into it because they have never heard of it. Or, it's just really, really cool, I think.
This is actually something we have also been having experience with, because Milka has been having some lab tests done. Like, it was about a year ago now, last year, April, she had some elevated blood results, and the red blood cells were elevated. So, they say, oh, she might have been dehydrated. But it got to a point where, like, every single year when we test her blood, her red blood cell counts are high. And we're actually doing a podcast episode just on this topic and our experience with this, on this journey that we've had with her in the past year. We have made the experience with our own, with Milka, how important it is to, like, go to multiple different vets and multiple different health professionals outside of vets, because it has been so mind-opening, actually. Like, the very different, like, everyone says something different, and it's just been so interesting to, like, be on this journey with her. And then also getting like the feedback from people that are vets, but then also people that are alternative health coaches or herbalists and homeopaths. So it's just a very interesting journey.
Yeah, I think it's so important, honestly, just to have like a team of pet health, just have a team of pet health wellness experts.
And actually, something that you said was with regards to pet sitters. I think that's like such a weird one at first when you first said it. But actually, a lot of pet parents actually drop off their pets at the vet as well for boarding. I don't know if that's a thing in America, but I know it's a thing in Dubai. So that's just another added on thing, actually, that vets are supposed to do.
Yeah, no, it's very popular here as well. And I have never done it, and I don't ever recommend it. But that is, I'm just not a fan of boarding in general. I understand that, like, sometimes there are extenuating circumstances that may be, but, like, yeah, it's a big thing here too. I don't love it, but it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, to your point about, the labs, if I didn't know what I know now, just going back to the experience that I started out this conversation with this new veterinarian, not only was her thyroid level high, her BUN, the blood urea nitrogen, was also high. And so that was the first thing this veterinarian came back and said, oh, well, her BUN is high. She has kidney disease. And I'm looking at her and I'm going, we just spent 30 minutes of you telling me that I should not be feeding my dog a raw food diet. So you're very well aware that my dog eats a very high protein raw food diet. And you're telling me that an increased BUN is CKD I was like, okay, I understand that. She eats a very high protein diet. So it kind of makes sense that her BUN would be high. What's her SDMA? It's normal. Okay, I'm not worried about that. And she was like, oh, okay, I guess if she eats a high protein diet, that could make sense. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. So, it really, like, if I weren't me, if it were just somebody else, they would have left that veterinarian's office thinking, oh my God, my dog has kidney disease.
Yes.
Hmm.
right? No, my dog
Yeah.
doesn't have kidney disease.
Yeah. And again, that's why it's so important to, have a team of people that you can reach out to and say, hey, look, this is what I got back. What are your thoughts on this? And then you can have some reassurance on what might be happening with your animals. So having a team is so important. And I'm so happy that, we have a team for Milka.
I really wish that, and as people start learning about it, I'm sure things will change. But right now, people in doing what I do, we're like the last line of defense. We're like,
Hmm.
people have tried everything. They have fed everything. They have gone to all the vets. They've done all the things, and it's like, you're my last ditch effort. And that, it kind of sucks because it's like, that's a lot of pressure, but
Yeah.
also it's so rewarding when you can give extra quality time that they weren't
Mhm.
expecting to have with their pet.
Mhm. Absolutely.
All right, before we continue, I want to tell you about a brand that's truly leveled up our dog's health and well being. Our sponsor, CBD Dog Health, offers the highest quality, full spectrum CBD products for pets that are 100% natural, third party tested, and made right here in the USA. CBD has been proven to be a natural anti inflammatory, pain reliever, and studies even show that it can help to reduce seizure frequencies, ease stress around triggers, which makes it powerful for treating PTSD, anxiety, panic disorders in animals and people alike. We've been using CBD dog health products with our French Bulldog, Milka, for years now, and I don't ever want to run out of them. Their tincture called Calm has made a world of a difference in reducing Milka's separation anxiety, and it is our go-to for us in new places, restaurants, or loud settings. And it works so fast. And the East tincture has been fantastic in supporting Milka's joint health and managing inflammation. So if you're ready to see the benefits of quality full spectrum CBD for your dog, cat, or horse, head over to podega.us and use the code CBD for 10% off your next order of CBD. Free shipping on qualifying orders in the USA. Again, visit podega.us and use the code CBD for 10% off your next CBD order. Terms and conditions apply. All right, let's get back into this episode.
So, what would be your advice when it comes to pet parents knowing when it's time to bring in a specialist instead of just working with their veterinarian?
Honestly, I wish they would start from the beginning.
Okay.
Especially when it comes to like a nutritionist, because that isn't something, and I won't say all, because there are definitely some veterinarians out there who are like, I know everything there is to know about nutrition because Hills told me so. And, bless their hearts. And I appreciate everything that they do learn in vet school. But if we can start off on the right foot, like, and what is that term? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. That, like,
Mhm.
if we could start off on the right foot, like, oh my gosh, there's certainly a lot that needs to be overcome, and this is something that I've talked about here and there. I think I started this conversation with I mentioned BC Hinchin at the beginning of this
Mhm.
podcast, and I'm sure most people have no idea who he is, and that's okay. But he has been in the world of pet nutrition for a very long time, and I had him on my podcast a couple of times, and we were talking about this kind of a little over a year ago. I don't know if people remember. There was a big to do with a particular pet food brand, very, very popular, one of the most popular, and a lot of dogs getting very sick and dying, and the FDA not doing anything about it, still hasn't done anything about it. And the conversation that we had kind of wound up with like, dogs may have been eating similarly to how they're eating today. But one thing that we're not taking into account is like genetics that are being passed down from generation to generation. And so we have generations of dogs and cats that have been fed such poor quality nutrition for generation after generation after generation. And this is the first time we're seeing this. So to me, I mean, I know this is probably a huge like moment for a lot of people, but to me, I feel like kibble is a failed experiment, and the sooner we acknowledge that, the sooner we can get back to a state of health for our dogs. It's going to take generations to get there, because it has taken generations to get where we are, to where the same, and we do not have the same level of nutrition. We do not have the same level of toxic environments that we did 50 years ago. It's worse now.
Mm-hmm.
But even if we did have the exact same level as we did 50 years ago, our dogs aren't as well equipped to handle it anymore, because it has been generation after generation after generation of poor quality nutrition, of toxic overload that isn't being, that like they're just not able to properly detox. All of the chemicals and all of the everything in the air, everything in the water, everything in their food. And so it has just gotten to a point where they're just not able to handle what they should be able to handle in a normal environment. And so starting from the beginning, starting from you adopted this dog, like that would be my ideal, especially for getting a nutritionist on board.
Yeah.
Wow, you know what you just said is so. I actually never really thought about that. And BC is an amazing person, honestly. But thinking what you just said about dogs 50 years ago, and yes, they were eating processed food, and yes, they were exposed to toxins, and yes, and they were exposed to all these different, environmental issues back then. But today is so much worse. And generation after generation, if the parents are continuing to pass on poor gut health, a lot of this is just like their guts are just completely, almost genetically wrecked in a way, so it is important to, right from the jump, just do everything within your power to get them on the right track as far as their health.
Yeah, we're always so big on prevention, because the best way to, it's just so much better to prevent a disease rather than hoping that you can find a treatment option later down the line, right? So like we have this happen a lot with pet parents talking to us actually and saying things like, oh yeah, I'll just get back in touch with Podego when my dog has a problem. And we're always like, that's not why we're here. We're here to help you prevent the problem from happening in the first place. And I wish more pet parents understood that and how important it is to prevent something. So to give like one example out of our life that is really prominent right now or really recent is we've just left an island in Thailand and with Milka. And of course, we have all of the natural flea and tick prevention stuff with us, and we use that on Milka, right? And we take a multifaceted approach to helping to prevent flea and tick on Milka. But unfortunately, on this island, there must have been a very high tick location where she was, and we found ticks on her. So immediately when we found ticks on her, we searched her entire body, which we were sitting there for hours, just like,
dissecting every piece of fur.
Exactly. And we ended up like finding, I think the first hour we found like between 3 and 5. They were very small, so they just must have latched on her. So we right away had the tools to, first of all, pluck them, but then also use a natural flea and tick shampoo on her that helps kill the ticks. So we were literally standing there on the side of the road in Thailand with a bottle of water, like bottled water.
And like shampooing her on the road.
On the road, yeah. So we're like leaving it in for 10 minutes, letting it soak. And then but to come back to the prevention aspect, a veterinarian might have just at that point obviously gave flea and tick medication and stuff, but there's no preventative aspect that a regular veterinarian would have taken as far as helping to prevent something like Lyme disease. Because we've worked with a homeopath before, that is in our holistic pet health expert
Panel.
panel, we know that there are homeopathic remedies that we can give that can help prevent Milka from developing a disease from the ticks. So like that is just one aspect of how a healthcare team is helping us prevent disease in the future, versus where a veterinarian might be reactive and might just say, okay, come back if symptoms develop. A holistic health coach or a homeopath, or, you know, depending on what your dog is dealing with, but they are more likely to be able to tell you how to help prevent something so that you don't get the symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of hit that home, I think it's Dr. Kendra Pope who said that we already have the cure for cancer, and that's not to get it in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. Yeah, and Dr. Kendra Pope is also an amazing integrative veterinarian who we've worked with last year as well during Milka's because of her blood work. So, yeah.
Just to add, you know, to anybody, you know, that may possibly go through this with ticks, like what we actually used was the flea and tick shampoo by Kin & Kind, which really worked because later on, while we were combing through her fur again, we were able to see dead ticks. So they actually died right within her fur. So, but I would say, you know, whenever you're doing anything natural, it really is about multifaceted approach. And natural sometimes is really not convenient because, like, of course, it would just be so much easier to just give your dog poison and kill all the ticks. But that's not what we want to do, because there are serious side effects when it comes to these chemical-based products. But the natural way is like really, we were really going through her fur. And we were doing that for hours and hours and hours and several days after, just to be 100% sure that she has no ticks. And now I'm just like always combing her fur, checking. But that's because of our environment, right? Like depending on where you live, this might be something that you need to do. And where we lived before, I never felt like I needed to do this. Of course, I always check, but now I check every single day, you know, because of the environment that we live in.
Yeah. Well, and to your point about how different natural modalities work, I think that is something else that people, it's another thing that we have to unlearn. Unfortunately, I think unlearning is harder than learning, is that we have been taught by the pharmaceutical companies for so long that you have X problem, take Y pill, and it's going to fix your symptom, right? Your symptoms are going to be gone. Never mind all these other symptoms that are going to pop up because of what you just took. But, you know, that's kind of how we think now. And I also see that happening with natural supplements, natural solutions. People are like, yes, I want to do things holistically with my dog. What can I give for X? Right. And it's like, no, that's not how nature works. So it's just another one of those things that we have to kind of unlearn, that to truly have a holistic approach to our healthcare, we're looking at the whole body, and not just the whole body, but the energy and everything around in our environment. Like we have to, and I get that what I'm saying right now can be very overwhelming, can sound very daunting. You don't have to do everything all at once. You can take baby steps. That's totally fine. I just that one of those steps that we need to take is that we have to get out of that mindset of, this is my symptom, what do I take for it? That's not how natural modalities work.
Absolutely. So, what are some practical steps that pet parents can take to build a very well-rounded support system for their pets?
Well, I think the very first step is going to be finding a veterinarian that you trust, that you can have conversations with, even if that veterinarian is not on board with everything that you want to do holistically or integratively, as long as you have open communication with them and they are willing to do the diagnostics for you and talk to you about anything that is coming up, that really is going to be very important. Um, if you have a veterinarian that is just going to tell you all the horrible things about what you're trying to do with your pet, it's going to make things so much more difficult for you because you are going to feel bullied. You are going to feel alone, and that's not a good place to be. Um, so, finding community and finding a veterinarian that you can just have conversations with and agree to disagree, that probably is going to be one of the very first things that's going to make this journey a lot easier for you. Finding that community. I think social media is such a double-edged sword. We can find the best and the worst of everything in the exact same place. And so it's hard, and I get that it's hard. Finding community is helpful. Find at least one creator on whatever platform you choose to be on, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, wherever. At least one creator who you really, really resonate with, that you feel like you can trust to start going down those rabbit holes, and then take everything you learn and start applying it to every aspect of whatever it is you need for your pet. So your pet sitter may be one of the first ones, depending on how often you travel. And, if you have a pet sitter who you have started implementing a raw food diet, and your pet sitter is like, oh, no, that's too much. I'm not doing that, or I'm not touching raw meat or whatever. Maybe that pet sitter is not right for you, right? Anymore. So, taking baby steps, but I really think, and granted, it's going to be difficult for some people to have these real honest conversations with their veterinarians for possibly the first time in their lives. But that, if you can just agree to disagree. I mean, in a perfect world, our veterinarian would be like, yay, let's get your pet healthy, right? But, that's just not how they're trained. It's just not. So expectations, having realistic expectations, and just seriously agreeing to disagree, if that's the best we can do with our veterinarian, it's a pretty darn good step, I think, in the right direction.
So let's say someone is looking for a pet nutritionist, right? There are so many people out there that claim to be pet nutritionists today, especially on social media. How can pet parents find these professionals and make sure that they're properly qualified? And are there any red flags when it comes to choosing these pet professionals?
I think it is difficult. I get that it's difficult. And there are only a handful of certifications out there in North America for small animal nutrition, some of which are even more specialized, like the ones I have. One is just for dogs. The other is for dogs and cats, but it is just for raw feeding. And for me personally, I picked those because of my belief system and how I feel dogs and cats should thrive, how they should be fed. So looking for, when you're looking at the certifications that someone has, okay, look at their website or wherever they have their credentials, if that's on their Instagram or their Facebook or whatever. And then you can actually just go to that website, wherever that credential is through, and like read through what they've learned. Like, you're obviously not going to get the course, but like, what is that certification all about? You can read through that and see if that resonates with you or not. So not everybody does this. Currently, I still offer free 15-minute. If somebody does offer a free consultation, book it. Talk to them. Do they even resonate with you? And that's one of the things that I talk to people about. I'm like, this 15 minutes is for us to decide if we want to work with each other. And that goes both ways, right? In fact, I just talked to somebody last night who I hated to do it, but I told her, I was like, I can't take your money. I cannot take your money because I can give you some advice. I can tell you that I prefer this brand over that brand. I can tell you that your dog has a heart murmur, so I would not recommend CBD, even though a lot of people are going to be recommending it because she has arthritis. I can tell you, and I'm going to tell you this for free, because at the end of the day, she wasn't willing to transition her dog off of kibble. And I said, you know what? I respect that you have decided that for your dog because of past experiences. I don't think I can help you in the way you're looking for. And so book that free call if they offer it. See if you jive, see if you resonate with one another. Another thing that I will say is that I work with people to the best of my ability to meet them where they are. And so one of the things that I talk about is what's going to be the best for your dog or your cat, but also what are you realistically going to do? And the reason I bring that up is because I'm not a big fan of using multivitamins or premixes or any of that. I would much rather hand you recipes that are 100% balanced with whole foods. That may not be the reality of where everyone is, and I want you to succeed. So if it's going to be, if you're actually going to be able to stick with it, if I use a multivitamin, then let's do that. But if you are working with somebody and that's all they do is this, some meat, some veggies, some grains, and like a balance it, if that's all they do, for me, that's a huge red flag, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're not sitting there and saying, I can give you whole food balanced recipes, that's a huge red flag for me.
But it makes sense. It makes so much sense because like you want somebody that will give you options and not kind of only one option,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I see that so often, and it breaks my heart, honestly, because I have people come to me who are like, I've just spent so many hundreds of dollars to get this one recipe and my dog won't eat it. And I look at it and it's a balance it recipe. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. And I hate to charge you, but unfortunately, like my time is valuable and I am going to have to charge you, but I'm going to give you, by the way, more than one recipe because rotation is so important. And also like, we're going to make sure that your dog is going to eat that.
Yeah.
That's such good advice, because even if you're feeding complete and balanced recipes, like it is so important to feed more than just one recipe and constantly like change through recipes, not just for nutritional reasons, but also for the sake of keeping things fun and delicious for our dogs, because there's a lot of dogs that will just become very picky after eating just one recipe for a long time.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are some good tips. And like when it comes to building a healthcare team, a lot of pet parents might think that it sounds expensive, especially when they're already paying for vet visits. So what would you say to someone that wants to take a more holistic approach, but is concerned about the financial side of this? And are there any budget-friendly ways to build this well-rounded team?
Yeah, well, I think some parts of the team you're paying for anyway. Pet sitters, groomers, trainers, you're already paying for those services. So just being a little bit more specific in what you're looking for isn't going to make a difference one way or the other in the pricing. It and yes, when we start out on a more holistic journey or integrative journey, there are some upfront costs, and they can be a little overwhelming sometimes. And I think that we just have to realize that while nobody can ever guarantee anything, we talked a little bit earlier about overcoming genetics. It's difficult, and then we really have to pay so much attention to the epigenetics and like how we are managing the environment and what we're putting in and on the body so that we're not turning those switches on. And that, yeah, there's a little bit of upfront cost to that. But the goal ultimately is that over the lifetime of your animal, you are actually spending less money. And sometimes it may not feel like it. I know you guys can probably attest to that as well. Sometimes it may not feel like it. I know I spend so much money on food and sometimes supplements. I don't use a ton of supplements, but it can feel really overwhelming. But at the end of the day, I can look back and see that for the first, I don't know, 10, 12, 15, I don't know how many years it was of me being an adult, being a pet parent, I spent so many thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars every single year in vet bills. Whereas now, yes, I'm spending a whole heck of a lot of money in food, but at the end of the year, it nowhere adds up to the amount that I used to spend in vet bills, which, by the way, now my animals pretty much only get their every 6 month checkup. Like that's where we're at, unless something happens, unless it's an end of life type of situation, where, you know, you need some diagnostics generally for that and make some decisions. But it doesn't have to be all or nothing all at once either. So I think that's where people can kind of take some baby steps financially as well, where you can just start adding some higher quality fresh foods to the bowl. See how that feels. See how it feels to maybe at the same time you're buying yourself that regeneratively raised chicken and sharing it with your dog or cat. How does that feel, you know, financially for you? So, you know, taking baby steps is totally fine. It is totally fine. And kind of giving yourself that buffer of like, okay, I can do this month, and maybe next month I can throw in some, I'm going to buy some mason jars and grow my own broccoli sprouts, right? Like there's so many things that you can do. And that's, again, one of the first things I talk about with people is like, where are you as far as you've got to decide. I don't care what we're talking about in life. Just right now, we're talking about your pets. You're either going to put money into it or you're going to put time into it, one way or the other. And you just got to make that decision wherever you're at in your life right now. And that can change, and that can go back and forth a lot. Like you guys were saying, when I had you on my podcast, like having this freeze-dried food is amazing, right? For Milka right now, because of your travel situation. That is more expensive than making your own raw food meal for her. But that's what you need in this season of life. So it isn't all or nothing. Make tiny adjustments here and there, see how it feels, see what you can do differently next month. And yeah, I think those are some of the tips that I have.
Those are some really amazing tips for sure. And just we can totally second what you just said. We've made the same experience as far as how our vet bills looked like when we weren't focusing on prevention and we weren't going down that natural way of feeding and, you know, the holistic route of pet wellness. Our vet bills were so high. And ever since we've started on this healing journey with Milka and started focusing on good quality nutrition and supplements and things like that, like we are definitely spending a lot more money on her food and her supplements now and her lifestyle just in general, but we're spending close to no money in vet bills. So that definitely, for anyone, you know, just starting out their journey as a pet parent, or for anyone who has a new pet, or for anyone who has a pet that doesn't have any symptoms, starting with prevention as early as possible is definitely going to save you so much money down the line. And even as far as like healthcare, the healthcare team for people who have pets that already have certain concerns, we've made the experience last year that a holistic vet was much more expensive all at once. But the time that we spent with that holistic vet, or actually she's an integrative oncologist, Dr. Kendra Pope, the time that we spent with her actually equaled out, because it equaled to like going to the vet like what for
5 or
like
6
two
times.
2 hours. Like you
More
don't
than
ever
that.
have, or even more than that, you don't ever have that much time with a conventional vet. So it actually is around the same price at the end of the day. But yeah, that's just our experience. One thing I did want to mention is, because we've talked a lot about pet sitting today, something else that we've done last year is actually become members in a platform called Trusted House Sitters. I'm going to leave the link in the description below, but basically what that is, it's a free pet sitting platform. Well, you pay a membership once a year, which is like $100, I think, or so. But everyone on this platform is vetted, so people can apply to pet sit for you. So if you say you're going for 2 weeks in August somewhere, you can put your house and your dog.
It's like an Airbnb.
Yeah, it's like an Airbnb, but with dogs, basically, and cats. So you can like put all your information there. You can say, this is what I'm expecting from my pet sitter. You will need to give this supplement, or, you know, basically you write down the routine. You write down like exactly how much time your dogs should be outside or exercised, and, you know, all of that. So the pet sitters know what they're committing to. And then you can interview the pet sitters, and it's an exchange. So the pet sitter stays at your house for free, but in return, they look after your dogs and your house and your cats. So that's also a way of at least having that one part of your pet health care team, a little more affordable, if that's something that works for you.
But just to add to this, because we kind of already spoke about this, but I think maybe we can just emphasize a little bit more on utilizing all the free content that is out there already. So whether it's through podcasts like this, whether it's through YouTube videos or Instagram Reels, or, you know, or whatever these things are called, right? Like the shorts, wherever you can get information from really great content creators, those are really great places, because a lot of content creators, ourselves included, we put out so much free information, and you can go check this information at any time. If you want to learn how to make a recipe, if you want to make your own dog treats, if you want to learn how to, you know, what flea and tick prevention to stay away from or to use, or, you know, like all that information is there. And that is just a really great way to get started and going in the right direction without even necessarily having to pay for anything. So I just trying to think back on what did we do when in the very, very beginning. And that was one of the things that we did in the very beginning, is check content online. And because a lot of content creators, they do put out a lot of free information that is honestly very life-changing.
It is. And that's actually why I started my podcast, is because, I've been in the digital marketing space for over a decade now, and I learned in this process that you give your best stuff away for free. And so that's why I created my podcast, because I said, you know what, this is how I feel like I can best give back, that I can best give to the community, is by amplifying those voices of people that I trust and respect in this space, while putting good quality information out to people that I feel like is the best information that I could possibly be giving.
Well, thank you so much, Jessica, for being on our podcast today. We've learned so many amazing, valuable tips from you, and I hope that everyone listening is inspired to slowly add on to their pet healthcare team and slowly add more and more professionals into this team and advancing on their wellness journey. Thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it.
Gosh, thank you guys so much. Thank you for what you're doing, and for just helping educate pet parents so that they can do better for their pets. It means the world to, I'm sure, everybody listening. So thank you for everything you do.
Can you just tell everyone where they can find you if they want to get in touch with you or listen to your podcast as well?
Yeah, the podcast is called The Pet Parenting Reset, and it is available on all podcasting platforms: Spotify, Apple, Google, all the places. You can also go to thepetparentingreset.com and listen there if you prefer to do so. And if you want to get in touch with me, the best place to find me on socials is Instagram at The Pet Parenting Reset. And if you want to book that free discovery call that we talked about, that's you can get there through the link tree on my Instagram, but it's jessicalfisher.com is my main website that will actually get you everywhere else that you want to go.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you like this show and you like what we do here and you want to support us, the free and simple way to do just that is by hitting the subscribe button. Larry and I spent countless hours creating this podcast, and seeing our community grow really means the world to us and enables us to keep creating awesome content just like this.